Oh, this is quite scary. So everybody else that's speaking tonight has spoken at SheSays before, and I haven't. So I won't give you an update because that would just be confusing. I will tell you a bit about me. Hopefully it will be interesting, and there might be some takeaways for you. And I'm going to talk about some of the themes that have kind of been present throughout my career and my personal life. And I think the things that have kind of shaped probably where I am today and have brought me to SheSays tonight. So, thank you so much also to Rifa and the SheSays team for organising this and for inviting me. I kind of couldn't believe it when you emailed asking if I would like to talk, so thanks. Hopefully this goes all right. So I am the projects director at DabApps, as Rifa said. We are a pretty fast-growing software company in Brighton, and we make web and mobile applications, bespoke applications, and I kind of head up our project management team. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my career so far, and as I said, a few themes and things that I think have kind of impacted that, both for good and bad. I'm going to talk about, they look a bit negative up here, but as you just touched on, Natalie, there are definitely kind of good things that you can take from this, and also that vulnerability and realising that things are scary and that you will fail, and that actually those things can then lead to fulfilment. I definitely don't claim to be an expert on any of these, but I think they're probably quite important things to explore. And hopefully along the way you can kind of think about what they mean to you, how they've impacted you, how you kind of confront them and deal with them in both your work life and your personal life as well. So before I go into those, I'm going to talk a bit about what's led me here today. I didn't come out of school thinking that I would end up being a project manager for a software company. In fact, nothing could have been further from the truth probably at the time. So this is my exceptionally well detailed and documented adult life emoji timeline. I didn't just drink beer at the first point, but well, I did probably do quite a lot of that. So this was the first bit that I'm going to talk about is 2003 to 2009. So when I was at school, I wanted to go on stage and be an actor. It doesn't feel like that tonight because this is quite scary. But yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I'd never given any thought to doing anything else. And so I was pulling pints for a living and drinking some. And I was auditioning for drama schools and hoping that I would get in, but I was also kind of living in fear of the kind of rejection. It's really, really competitive. There's probably about 2,000 people most of the time applying for about 20 places at each drama school. So it was pretty competitive. I felt like, obviously, I wanted it more than anything, but I had 3 years of doing that and kind of being rejected and failing. And I'm actually only quite recently kind of really rethinking that and processing all of that and what it meant to me when I was 18-ish and experiencing that. So I decided, fuck it, as you've been swearing, I might as well too, and that I'd go travelling. So to kind of pause my career prospects even further, I went overseas. I spent 2 years abroad. It was amazing. I lived and worked in Sydney for about a year as well. I had a really great time, but then I came back home and still hadn't furthered my education, still didn't know what I wanted to do. I decided at that point that I definitely did not want to go and be an actor. Not entirely sure that was really what I thought at the time, but that's what I decided. So I came back home. I was living in Suffolk with my parents. I was back to pulling pints, and I had no idea what I was going to do, and I was totally broke. So I kind of decided that I needed to make a plan, and I needed to choose something to do. I needed to choose a career, and I kind of just kind of looked around and thought about what I might want, and I like talking to people, and I like communications and thinking about that, and I ended up doing a marketing certification and kind of choosing that as the route to go down. So I completed a marketing course. I went to volunteer for a charity one day a week. I was also still working in the pub. And I was working at a charity kind of doing in their marketing and fundraising department, and desperately trying to convince anyone that would listen to give me a job that wasn't pulling beer in a Suffolk pub. So actually it was through the pub that I met the person that gave me my first kind of office job. So I was offered this job. It was amazing. I felt brilliant. I thought I'd finally achieved something. This is it. I've got a career. Great. That went really well. I ended up being offered a full-time job for them. I ended up working there for a couple of years, becoming their marketing manager. It was ace. And then in 2011, and as is often the case, my stuff in my personal life mega impacted what was going on in my professional life and turned everything kind of on its head. And that's what the rainbow flag is. So, 2011, in the space of 5 months, I ended a 7-year relationship. I came out, I quit my job, my proper job. My parents were definitely making the grimacing emoji face at that point. I moved to Brighton to move in with my wife, who is, well, she wasn't my wife then, but she is, and so that bit worked out well. And she's here. So yeah, I moved to Brighton without a job, not knowing at all whether I'd be able to get one, not having a clue about what that job might be, and temping for a very long time, what felt like all eternity. Also doing some telesales, which was, yeah, pretty rubbish. I think it was selling insurance for white goods, so pretty thrilling stuff. However, I did end up getting a cool job in marketing and business development and lots of other things. And I met some amazing people there. And so I did that for a while, and it was marketing still. But I kind of started to stagnate, and I kind of ended up doing the same thing over and over again. And it felt like I wasn't being challenged. I wasn't challenging myself. I was just kind of going through the motions. I was doing loads of events, so I was away from home 3-4 nights a week sometimes. And if you pay Brighton rent, that's just not cool. So yeah, so I decided that I kind of wanted a change. I wanted a bit of a shift. And so I spoke to a friend of mine, Abby, who is also here, and she was like, come on to SheSays. And I had no idea what it was, honestly, and I had never been to an event where I've seen, I think everyone that's also speaking tonight speak, which is why it's kind of intimidating to meet you guys. Since I first came to SheSays in 2013. So I came along, I saw loads of amazing women being inspiring, talking about their careers, talking about being creative and how they'd kind of forged their own way. And I was totally blown away. And I tried to find, I think I'd sent a message to Kate, my wife, after I'd been to the first SheSays. And I was like, oh my God, my mind is blown. Like, we can do this stuff, and there are opportunities, and I can push myself forward to do things that I don't yet know about or I don't yet understand. So yeah, SheSays in that respect kind of really opened my eyes. So I then started applying for jobs in the digital sector, but on paper and in real life, to be honest, I didn't have the kind of skills and the experience that people wanted. However, as is often the case, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And I was introduced to Dabapps, who I'm still working for now. And thankfully, they thought that employing their first non-technical member of staff, it would be a good idea to hire someone with absolutely no knowledge or experience in that sector whatsoever, which worked out brilliantly for me. However, that was pretty scary. So yeah, it was amazing. I was so lucky to be offered the role, and it's definitely the thing that's helped me learn so much over the last few years, helped me meet so many amazing people in Brighton. But yeah, it was scary, start taking on something that I knew so little about. So that brings me on to fear. We all feel fear, I think. Pretty sure we do. And sometimes it might be related to something that is just genuinely horrible, and that's totally valid, and there's not much you can do about it if it's just really shit. But we all get the fear, and it can be about anything really. It can be about talking at SheSays. It can be about taking on a new role or a new job. It can be about starting a project or meeting with a client or anything. But it kind of also pushes us to get outside of our comfort zone. And I think that that's where it can be really useful. And it can mean that we learn. And if you can kind of find like that sweet spot where you're scared enough that you can still be coherent and make sense and take things on board and learn from the people that you're around, but you're not so scared that you're in fight or flight mode, which is not fun, as lots of us will know, then that's a pretty great place to be. And actually, one of my friends messaged me just before I was getting here, not knowing at all what I was talking about tonight, and he said, just kind of let the fear wash over you and breathe it out, and you'll be fine. And I think it's that thing of acknowledging that something is scary, knowing why it might, or understanding why it might be scary, but kind of saying, if I don't do things that are scary, then I'm just going to be doing the same thing over and over again. And if I hadn't done things that were scary, I would probably be in Suffolk, pulling pints, and even scarier, married to a man. So I, for one, I don't want to offend any men by saying that. I just mean it wouldn't have worked out well for me. So yeah, it's kind of facing fears, I guess, but also acknowledging that it's normal to feel scared and to feel fear, and knowing that other people have that too. Other people will feel fear, and that's totally fine, and it's good to let people know that that's okay too. It is absolutely one of the reasons that I am talking here tonight, because when Reefa sent me the email saying the other speaker who was supposed to kind of talk, who'd spoken at SheSays before, can do it, would you kind of like to come along? My first response was absolutely no way. But here I am. So definitely kind of facing those fears, thinking about them, taking time to think about them and acknowledge them is a good thing if you've got that kind of time. It's also really good to kind of, when you're feeling like that, to just kind of step back and say, I'm doing my best. You can't be asked to do more than that. And I think opening up that kind of vulnerability again and having those conversations and encouraging those conversations with the people that you work with and that you love and spend your time with is a really good thing. Encouraging people to talk about the fact that they might find things scary or that they might be scared of failing is a really, really positive thing. And this cute cat says, doing your best is enough. So next up, we're going to talk about failure. And we definitely all fail. Messing up and making mistakes is totally okay. It's okay for you to fail. It's okay for other people to fail. I did also write down, except maybe politicians, but they seem to do it more than lots of us. But yeah, we can talk about that after over wine. You should expect to fail as well. If we didn't expect to fail, I went to an event and they said, who here is kind of here today to learn some stuff, to learn some specific stuff? And like no one put their hands up. And it was kind of like, but if you're not here to learn anything, then that means you know everything already, so you might as well leave. failure is kind of like that. We can't know everything about what we might do, about the experiences that we might have, about stuff that's going to come up in our lives. So expect it, and also expect for others to fail. And if you work on a team, or it doesn't really matter in which of the context, but letting other people know that if they fail or when they've failed, that's kind of okay, and that you will support them. Again, that kind of messaging is a really, really important and valid thing. And it's definitely something that lots of companies don't do very well. There's definitely an aspect with kind of failure, of trying to learn from it as well. Although sometimes that might not be possible, it's kind of good to reflect on what's happened, I think. If it's painful, then you need to wait until you're at a time that you can do that. But it's important to kind of reflect and look back and try and learn from things and figure out what went wrong and what you might be able to do next. So just as a kind of, to talk about my job, because I probably should, because I'm just talking about other stuff. So as project managers, we kind of run work in 2-week cycles, and for a particular project. And at the end of that 2 weeks, we do a retrospective with the whole team that's been on the project. And we talk about, and everybody can tell us what they thought went well, what didn't go well, so what we failed at, and what we would do better next time. And there are really 3 really important things, because it means that we talk about the good stuff first. It means that we celebrate the wins, that we acknowledge that we did some stuff well and that we were successful. And we need to do more of that, just generally. I think particularly women. And then we talk about the stuff that didn't go so well, where we went wrong. And that's not to point blame or fingers and kind of, point out weak spots or anything like that. It's just so that we can change things going forward. And everything will be okay. When you fail, and when you're failing, and when something's not going right, it's really easy to kind of catastrophize that. I am very good at catastrophizing. Always have been. Probably always will be really good at that. But it's really, really important, if you can, to step back and say, what's the worst that's actually going to happen here? I was talking to someone about speaking here tonight and saying, I'm quite anxious. And it's one of my colleagues, and he said, yeah, but what is the worst that can happen? I was like, well, I'll get on stage and I'll freeze and I'll look like an idiot. And then, I don't know, I guess everything will be okay. I'll wake up tomorrow, probably drink more wine if that had happened, but everything will be okay. It's probably not going to be as bad as you think it will be when you're kind of panicking about whatever it is that's going wrong. So the next bit that I'm going to move on to is fulfillment, something positive. So this definitely, for me, has come out of the stuff where I've felt like I might be failing, where I've been really scared and had the fear, but where I've managed to push through those and challenge myself to do new and different things. And for me, for the most part anyway, this has led to a sense of fulfillment, because it means that you're learning, and it means that you're kind of achieving something that you want to. So I guess this is another part of this, is sort of thinking about what fulfillment means to you. And that doesn't mean just at work. That means when you are spending time outside of work at the weekend. Natalie, you mentioned about the fact that sometimes you do just want to watch Netflix, and that's okay. And it totally is. And it's about, I guess, thinking about what fulfillment means to you, what a sense of kind of contentment might mean to you, and whether, when you're thinking about your kind of challenges and fears and failures, those things have led to this and have impacted this. So I think, kind of to sum up, it's about trying to acknowledge fear and accept that failure will happen and reframe those things to get yourself to a point where you know that both of those things are okay and you're working towards something that gives you a sense of fulfillment and achievement. And then you'll be as happy as this cat. It's weird. I'm called Cat. I don't have any cats. I've got 2 dogs, and I've used cats in this, and it was kind of unintentional, but it happened. So, anyway, don't get me started on my dogs. And also, yes, boobs with dogs. Yeah. Kate and I looked at each other at that moment. We were like, yeah. We have a rescue dog from Greece, and every morning she gets onto the bed and she's like, food, please. Yeah. So, I was kind of going to finish on. So often at work, we can go from situations, so we kind of know everything about what we're doing. And this is definitely a situation that I was in my previous role. And I got to a point where I felt like I kind of knew all of the things about what I was doing. And then I went to DabApps and I knew none of the things. And I really, honestly, found it confusing and like people were speaking a different language, which they partly were, a lot of the time when they started talking about tech and that kind of stuff. And it took me a really long time to feel like I was getting that and I was understanding it. And it was really, really daunting. But if you can kind of manage your sense of fear and get some perspective on failure and think about what you kind of want to get and what you want to get out of those experiences of feeling like you're failing and of being scared, because you can get good stuff out of it, then I think you can and you will set yourself up, I guess, for success and for feeling like you've got a sense of fulfillment and that you're constantly growing and that you're constantly learning. That was good. Can you edit that out, please? Okay, thank you. I hope that some of that was useful, relatable, vaguely interesting, and I hope that maybe I'll be invited back again one day. And thank you again so much for inviting me. It has been terrifying, but excellent. And happy International Women's Day. Yeah, let's just hear it for the sisters.